Everyone says real estate is about location, 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 but most people are lost. After this series, you won't be. My name is Kane, and joining me today are my amazing co hosts, Georgina and Justin.
Hello, guys.
Hello.
Okay, and together we've spent years diving deep into the world of real estate, finance, and banking. Our goal to equip you with the insights, strategies, and inspiration you need to make smart and informed decisions on your investment journey. In today's episode, we're continuing our series on the secret to finding a real estate hotspot in the country. But before we dig deep into this topic, let's just do a quick recap on what we discussed last episode. Justin?
Sure. So in the most latest episodes, we've gone through, what is a hotspot core principles, infrastructure, specifically transport infrastructure, and health and education. Plus, we talked about planned growth, affordability, urban renewal, and property developers. So we have discussed a whole lot, guys. A whole lot. Now, for listeners who are just watching this episode, we highly recommend you at least go back and watch the first episode because it is the foundational episode and we teach you a lot of core concepts that you need to understand before getting into core drivers.
All right.
With that in place, let's jump into today's first topic, the late bloomer effect in real estate. So we'll cover how to spot undervalued areas with hidden potential and the key signs that signal they're ready to take off. So first, let's start off with the definition. What exactly is a late bloomer effect? This refers to areas, often suburbs, that are typically considered down market. They might be a little bit shady, a little underdeveloped, somewhere that wouldn't really be your first place to go. It's not your first preference. So these areas either on the process of or on the verge of gentrification. So that's evolving from what we would classify as a low value neighborhood to a middle class neighborhood, and then eventually, of course, into an upper market area. So many of these locations were once seen as unattractive and they go into a transformation and they turn into thriving, desirable places. And so the term late bloomer is used because these areas were initially overlooked or deemed undesirable, but eventually they bloomed into an attractive community over time, making it much more sought after. So why do you guys think that the late bloomer effect increases real estate value?
Well, it's that transformation, right? The transformation between a down market to a middle market to an upper market.
Yes, that's simple.
What improves, basically, it's what improves the real estate values is just something that was less usable now becoming more usable and more livable because real estate is all about people. So if you make a place more livable and make it more desirable to live in, property values will increase generally.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really simple concept, actually, isn't it? It's like we can finish the podcast here. Done.
That's it.
All
That's
right.
gentrification.
Right. I also want to add to that is that infrastructure again. So I just mentioned this episode. Infrastructure comes to play in this core driver. So
It does,
when there's additional roads, when there's public transportation systems, when there's utilities and commercial centers, these things significantly boost the appeal of an area. So maybe just for example, the MRT7, and it has spurred interest in areas like in Quezon City, in Fairview, and improved the connectivity and enhanced the accessibility and convenience for the residents and businesses there.
There's also some less tangible effects that this gentrification has on an area, one being crime rates. So the point of this late bloomer effect is that this town is somewhere you probably wouldn't want to go alone at night, but they've turned into a place where you feel like, yes, of course I want to go there, right? So it is that decrease in crime rates. The gentrification is like an initiative to create a safer environment. It encourages family-friendly activities. It encourages all kinds of businesses to come into an area. So overall, it makes it more of a safe space, just by default, And an example of this, as many people might be aware of, is Tondo in Manila. Obviously, the shadiest part of the Philippines. But they're trying really hard to improve its reputation. We're trying to make it bit more appealing for residential and commercial ventures. We're not quite there yet, but it's probably going to go through this late bloomer effect sooner rather than later.
Yeah, for
Add
sure.
on both of your points, right, for Georgina and Kane, it's, you know, the infrastructure development and the decrease in crime rates is usually due to an increase in people going to that location, right? Because it's gone from a down market to a middle market, and that has increased the amount of people, and the increase in people and housing demand sort of forces the government to improve infrastructure because more people are going there, and then also they forced to think about decreasing crime rates there because now a lot more people are going into that area.
And you know, sometimes crime rates can be lowered by something as simple as streetlights. Do you know what I mean? So like you don't even need to make like a massive initiative, you know, like it just comes as part of infrastructure. So it really is a less tangible side effect.
Yep. And one more thing that I want to add here is that when these areas are overlooked, right? But it has proximity to business and employment hubs. So areas once overlooked can gain value when economic growth expands nearby, making them attractive for their affordability and proximity to the new job opportunities. Take, for example, again, we're going to mention this example over and over again, BGC. In BGC, so it boosted the value of adjacent areas like in Capitolio, right? Nobody knows that place, but it actually boosted that value of that area there, the real estate value, which provided more affordable alternatives with easy access to that central business district. So now that we've discussed why the late bloomer effect increases real estate value, let's talk about the first thing to remember in this core driver, which is that late bloomer effect is mainly driven by affordability.
The main reason why late bloomer is driven by affordability is because, let's paint a picture, right? So what generally happens is the cities in an area are very expensive because they're the center for everything, right? Then when the center becomes too expensive, people who are living in the center or looking to live in the center try to find places near it because of affordability. Like they can no longer afford to go into the city, or it's just not
They're
worth
priced
it.
out. Yeah, they're priced out.
They're essentially priced out. So then they go, okay, what's the next best spot? What's the most affordable spot where I can still be close to the center, but not have to spend, you know, a whole lot of money to do that? And that's why, and then they find places that are affordable, that generally have good infrastructure, and make that their home. And these are generally places that are not as developed as the center, and that's why they're late bloomers, because the center will develop first, and then people will then go, oh, now it's too expensive because there's too much demand, and then that demand will start to trickle out to places that are not as developed yet.
And this is also for people who, not just residential, but also for commercial businesses as well. Like they often can't afford to they can't afford to have their shops. They can't afford the rent of these big popular areas. So they are also forced to try and take advantage of other foot traffic that might be nearby the city as well. They're looking for like a more budget-friendly business venture. So for example, like startups, cafes, like boutique shops, they're all like looking to be close to the city, as close as they can get, but they just can't afford to get in there. So that's why also now's a good time to remind people that affordability is not necessarily cheap. It's just cheap in comparison to what's around.
Yeah, and we had a whole episode on affordability, by the way.
We did. Go back and watch it.
What do you guys think is a good example of gentrification?
I'll go here because I literally go to this place and party. So it's in Poblacion, Makati. It's a very, very good example of a place that went through gentrification. So for people who's listening who don't know where Poblacion is, technically it's a place that was once known for its really chaotic environment and really old structures.
I think it's still pretty chaotic there.
It's still, but it's a different kind of. It's a
good chaos.
It's a nice,
and
it's a vibe.
It experienced revitalization through affordability-driven growth. How so? Number one, properties there had lower initial property prices compared to the central districts nearby. So
Yep.
people were forced to move there. And number two, because of the lower initial property prices, there was a gradual influx of establishments like restaurants, working spaces, more specifically catering to middle income earners and tourists. And then through that, gentrification raised the area's profile, thereby boosting its property values and rental yields.
So Publish
Absolutely.
is like the party central, but it's a nice party central now. Like there's lots of really high-end bars and like really good restaurants there
Yeah.
now. It's
Yeah.
not like the trashy place
And
that it
cafes.
probably
Yeah.
used to be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
people
very
probably remember
social.
Publish On as not very usable or not a very attractive place to go to, right?
Yeah. It's
And
still a
that's
bit scary.
it's still a bit, but it's less so right? Because there's a lot
It-
more. Yeah.
yeah.
So that again, that's just to go back to my example. So it was like, okay, Makati was too expensive for people to live in because the demand increased, and then young professionals who couldn't afford to live in Makati but still wanted to be close to it were then forced to move to, or even like from maybe not live, maybe from a lifestyle, like they wanted to have an area to hang out with their friends, and Makati was too expensive, so then they made Publish On their home. And then
Yeah.
that gradual influx of people to Publish On attracted businesses to then establish restaurants, bars, and clubs. And then that also attracted people to buy property and improve
Yeah.
the housing and hotels and things like that. And that whole process really revitalized Publish On from not a very high valued real estate market to a lot better now than it was before.
I think that's actually a really good point, because that's pretty much exactly what our second thing to remember is, right? Like it's
Yeah.
remembering that it's more natural, it's less planned. So it's just
Yeah.
like Justin said, Makati used to be the place to be, and to some extent it still is. It is very expensive to be in Makati, and so
Yes.
people were forced out and people have gone to Publish On instead. So it's a cause and effect, and
Yep.
this is far more people based than something like a
Government.
Yeah,
Yeah,
renewal.
government.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of
Yep.
those things. It's very much like people are just forced to move out, and you need to be like, people are observant of where everyone else is going. So people are realizing that, oh, okay, Publish On's a little bit farther out, but it's still relatively close by. It's got all of these lifestyle amenities that I might really enjoy. Sometimes you might get a little bit more space for the
Yep.
money that you spend, which could be a really big factor, and it's all the more affordable. So I think like the end, my point, what I'm trying to get at here is that if you're seeing people move, you're probably seeing signs of future gentrification, right? Like you're probably looking at a low market evolving into a medium market or evolving into a high market again. It's always driven by affordability.
Yeah, and that's a
Right.
good thing. If you're an investor, it's a good thing to look for that, right? Because that's where the opportunity lies. It was
Yeah.
the opportunity lies when you're seeing people starting to go to Publish On, and then you're going, okay, how can I capitalize on that? Understanding that, oh, this might be a happening place where everyone's going. So from a real estate investment, are you going, oh, should I buy a commercial space there and then lease it out to a business? Or maybe the shared dormitories, maybe that's a good investment opportunity in Publish On because it's young professionals. So the main point is you're seeing that people movement, and that is a key indication for you to go, okay, where's the opportunity lie in that?
And if you're seeing it happen in real time as well, then that could be like really key for your investment.
Right.
As we've mentioned a lot, timing is always key. Trying to
Yeah.
get in early.
And that's a big difference between like gentrification, because the process, I'm sure a lot of people are thinking like, oh, the gentrification and urban renewal are very similar. They are. It's the process of turning something that wasn't being used into something more usable. Yes, but if you think about urban renewal, it's very strategic. It's very planned. There's a lot of
Mentioned a lot, timing is always.
where gentrification is more of, hey, people are being, I guess you could say, forced out of certain areas, and then they have to move to other areas and make that their home, and the increase in people will then force that area to improve generally.
Yes, exactly. All right. And just a summary to everything that we just discussed in this thing to remember that it's more natural and less planned. So with the example that we gave in Poblacion, because of its proximity to Makati, it made it an ideal place for workers that can't live to afford in places like, let's say, Salcedo and Legazpi Village. That's where like the malls are. It's very expensive there. So these naturally evolving neighborhoods provide alternatives for residents and businesses priced out of planned areas like Makati or like BGC. So while planned development offers predictability, the late bloomer effect in less planned areas can lead to rich and culturally vibrant communities as well. And spotting these transformations early allows investors to benefit from the upward trajectory of naturally gentrifying these areas.
And I think
Yep,
that's a good transition, Kane, when you said spotting these early. Because that's the
yep.
third thing to remember, right? Which is this for investors is timing. It's all about
Okay,
timing.
got it.
Gentrification, you got to time it right. You got to time it when it's the rise in demand happens. You got to time it
Right.
when there is the movement of people and it's becoming a trend to go there.
Yep.
That's a time when you're an investor to go, okay,
Yep.
this might be a good opportunity to invest, because what can happen is if you're too slow on the movement, Publish On turns into what Publish On is right now, and then you've just lost the opportunity. Because if you
Yeah.
buy, the difference is if you bought before Publish On was popular versus buying it now, I mean, there's a significant price difference, most likely. Maybe
Yeah.
a couple million pesos is the price difference between buying when Publish On wasn't Publish On versus buying when Publish On is now popular. So that's why
That's-
timing is key.
Yeah, there's more demand now. It's more trendy now than it was back then.
Yep. And that's also why it happened so quickly because of the demand. So when people moved into Poblacion, more specifically, they moved there because of the affordability. So the demand surged. That's why late bloomer effect takes action so quickly. And that's why you need to time it correctly. It's critical. Timing is critical here. So now that we've talked about timing, that timing is key, let's talk about the next thing to remember here, which is to be counterintuitive. What does that
Let me
mean?
let me take this one, Kay.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
think I can explain this pretty well.
Go
So
ahead.
what can happen with these locations, because they generally have a bad reputation or high crime rates, or there's not a lot of news on them, or just people don't know these locations, they can be turned off by investing in these locations. Because like if it's a high crime rate or has bad reputation, if you talk to a local, they'll probably tell you don't invest here, right? Like they'll probably say, hey, I don't even want to live here, let alone you investing in property.
Yeah.
But as an investor, you have to think more logically and see past those, the bad reputation or what other people are saying, and then go, does this location have the makings to be a good location based on, different factors, like it's really close to the city or it has really good infrastructure, things of that nature. So you have to, basically what I'm trying to say is you have to logically break it down and not listen to the emotional factors. Like there's a lot of people, when they invest, they go, would I want to live here? And then if you're thinking about Publish On before Publish On became popular, well, of course you wouldn't want to live there. So then they go, well, if I don't want to live there, why would I invest there? But that's the wrong thinking. You have to think about, yes, it might not be the place to go to now, but can it be the place to go to, and why?
Yeah. Can it be the next best trend?
Yeah.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
also I just want to add to that as well. I just remembered this really really good quote, and in something like, those at the top of the kingdom never got there by following the crowd.
Aww.
Right? So it's the same in real estate. Being counterintuitive sometimes is necessary. And if you want to be successful and if you want to take advantage of the growth in the market, there would be times, most especially in identifying late bloomer, you have to be counterintuitive. You cannot follow the crowd.
Yeah, definitely. I think that segues us pretty perfectly into the next thing that we need to talk about, actually, which is things to remember. Number 5, what to look out for that could turn an ugly into a late bloomer. What are the warning signs, or the positive signs, the symptoms,
Factors.
the
Yeah.
factors?
What
Yes,
are the
thank
factors?
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can go first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, one thing that we have to look out that could turn an ugly into a late bloomer would be its proximity to a city.
yes.
Yeah.
Right. Again, Poblacion, very near to Legazpi and Salcedo Village, where the malls are, where the luxury stores are, right, just outside the city. So areas near major urban centers often benefit from the spillover.
Yeah,
The spillover of the economic activity of
yeah.
those centers.
And of course, it can't just be close to these centers, but it also needs to be affordable in
Yes.
comparison.
Yeah. And then I think added to that is if it has already good infrastructure, I think like those three together is probably a very, very good sign that it has the bones to become a late bloomer. Because you go, okay, it's close to the city, it's super affordable, and there's great infrastructure, meaning I can get to the city quite easily from this place, or I can get to other places quite easily. So those three really good together.
Those
Right.
are the golden trio.
Right. And one more thing I'd like to add with that is there would be a change in the demographic of an area.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So usually this change involves professionals. When professionals, and there would be younger and creative individuals that would be there, and they would be the ones to revitalize that area.
Yeah, the young people are always the ones who take the sacrifice, in conditions at least.
Right.
Another good one is like if there's baked in lifestyle features, I think that's gonna attract people. Like
Oh
if
yeah.
there's like a beach there already, of course, or
Yeah,
like
beach.
if there are areas that can turn into like a good lifestyle, like obviously publish on like bars and clubs. So there's an opportunity for bars and clubs to open up. So I think that's definitely another sign.
Yeah, I think I can't think of anything else that's sort of like a really good indicator, like in a city, but like when you're looking around a city, you know, you might be able to identify one because there's urban renewal around an area, if that makes sense. So like there's urban renewal happening in one town and it's pushing people to other affordable locations because the urban renewal is making everything really expensive in one area. It might be beneficial for you to look to see where people are moving out to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it actually makes sense because what I just gave earlier, the example that I gave was proximity to a major business district, right? But this one's an urban renewal.
Yeah.
So the government's doing something in a certain area, and it also can be a factor in giving out a signal that an ugly could turn into a late bloomer. Yeah.
It's a lot harder to, I think, but it's still useful.
I think an important point that we actually miss is that the center has to be expensive, right? Because like, for
Yes.
example, like BGC 2004, like when it was very early, right? An early center, it wasn't very expensive. So everyone was buying there. So everyone was just ignoring the other places and buying in BGC. So the first thing to look out for actually when it comes to gentrification is the city being really expensive. And then when that starts to happen, that's when the gentrification process will come into play.
Yeah. And that's a really good point as well, Justin, because technically that's the fifth thing that we need to remember. As the
Yes.
Philippines grows, the gentrification will increase as well. So as the
Yes.
Philippines continue to develop, gentrification, which is the transformation of undervalued areas into desirable ones, because middle class people and upper middle class people are moving in, it will accelerate. So yeah, it's driven by a variety of things, but it's mainly that. But how do you think development fuels gentrification?
I would say that the reason why the gentrification will increase is because the government and property developers are continuing to invest a whole lot into economic hubs and building economic hubs like BGC, Cebu, IT Park, Pampanga, Davao City, like all those things. As the government and private developers invest and build more of these hubs, it will force gentrification to occur faster because it will push out the people that are looking to live in these cities or that already live in these cities outside and then improve an area outside of that location. So as the process of more of these things popping up and more of the centers being expensive, the more people are going to move out, and then as they move out, that will cause the gentrification of an area. Hopefully that makes sense.
I think that's great.
Think brings us to our last point, which is the last thing to remember about gentrification, which is it's a really good opportunity for cash flow, capital growth, and value add opportunity. A perfect mix for a property investor. Let me explain why, right? So gentrification usually happens in areas, like we said, publish on, where it's already existing, it's just very underdeveloped. So as an investor, you can then buy a property that is underdeveloped and then wait for it to become developed. That means that you probably purchase it very cheap, and if you purchase it very cheap and it becomes high in demand, well, the cash flow is going to be there, right? Because you purchased it cheap. Now you can rent it out for a higher.
Yeah.
That's number one. Then that also means capital growth, because if you bought it when it was undervalued and now the demand is there because of gentrification, generally your equity is going to grow, right? And then lastly, because you're buying in areas that are already sort of developed, they're probably just older. That means that you have a chance to do some forced appreciation on that property by doing some sort of renovation, like renovating the kitchen, or if you're buying older, you might have to renovate the whole thing. So that means that, like I said, you get three things. You get the cash flow, probably high cash flow because you're buying in low, and then when you're renting it out when the demand has increased. And then there's capital growth because you bought in early, and then now there's demand and the appreciation has increased. And then number three, you can add force appreciation as well because you're buying something generally probably older and you can renovate it, thus also increasing the appreciation.
So let me just summarize that. So technically, investing in these kinds of areas, it provides a unique combination of affordability, future growth, and the chance to increase its value through renovations, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So by recognizing these opportunities early, any investor would be able to maximize their returns and build long-term wealth. All right. So as a conclusion, throughout this entire episode, the transformation of areas like in Poblacion and Makati highlights the late bloomer effect as a powerful real estate phenomenon. So initially seen as unattractive or undervalued, these late bloomers offer affordability and untapped potential that attract early investors, creatives, and businesses. So through strategic investment, gentrification, and improved amenities, these areas evolve into desirable and high value hubs, proving that with vision and with patience, overlooked neighborhoods can become thriving cultural and economic drivers or centers. So this process showcases how real estate investors can unlock significant returns by recognizing the future potential in currently underappreciated locations.
Overall, I think it's one of the more simpler core drivers that we have to understand.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So, and then in the next episode, we will talk about growth shock. The growth shock effect. So this is a very high risk, high reward core driver. So please stay tuned for that one.
So if this stuff seems interesting to you, be sure to join our real estate community group. There'll be a link down in the description below as always. You'll gain access to exclusive resources that can help you make better strategic decisions. Plus, you'll be surrounded by like-minded people who are also looking to build wealth and strive for financial freedom.
Now, if you're ready to start your real estate journey in the Philippines, the best first step is understanding your budget and how much a local bank will lend you. Here's the truth though, banks in the Philippines won't go deep into your finances up front. They'll only give you a rough range, leaving you guessing. And if you want multiple estimates it's kind of a hassle to do that, and it's very time consuming. That's where we come in. We have created what we call our free borrowing power consultation, where we do all the hard work for you and understand your finances and give you a more accurate estimation on what your budget will most likely be and which banks will actually give you that money. Plus, we can also connect you with very credible real estate agents who work with the biggest property developers in the Philippines. So if you want to save yourself a lot of time and hassle and want to start your real estate journey the smart way, sign up to our free borrowing power consultation. There will be a link below to do so.
All right. And make sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss your chance to uncover the secrets to finding hotspots. So again, join our real estate community, sign up for our free borrowing power consultation, and subscribe. Please subscribe. But so that is all that we have for you guys. Thank you so much for listening. And that is all. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone. See you on the
Bye.
next episode.
Bye.
Bye.